Hello and welcome to the Kairos Bridge channel. Today's episode is on the topic of emotion socialization. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, what on earth is that? That is completely understandable. Many people grew up in homes where emotions were not talked about and actually frowned upon or discouraged. But emotion socialization is the scientific concept of how do we teach kids what to do with their feelings? And this is about more than just emotions or feelings, because actually, emotional health shapes our thinking, it shapes our behavior, it shapes our learning, and it starts to shape our identity. So, emotional health is about more than just discipline strategies or reward systems to help encourage better behavior. It's about helping children think about things in a healthy way and choose healthy behavior. Here's the thing though, whether we realize it or not, every time our child feels something big, we're teaching them. We're teaching them what emotions mean, whether they're safe, and what to do with them. So let's jump in. Emotion socialization matters because we are all born with emotions, whether we like them or not. But what we're not born with is knowing how to handle the emotions. Emotions show up in every situation and circumstance of life. It's how we interpret the world. If we were hoping something happened and it didn't happen, that's disappointment, which could lead to hurt, sadness, or if a wrong was done or committed against us or others, that can lead to anger. If we've messed up and let someone down, that leads to guilt. If we don't have closeness with friends, family, or companions around us, that's loneliness. These emotions start to shape our thoughts, and those thoughts also start to shape our identity. These emotions and thoughts also shape our relationships and how we show up. Because if we don't learn to regulate our emotions and our thoughts, they start to take over our behavior, and our behavior may not be pleasant. People may empathize at first with our anger, but when our anger starts to become resentment and revenge, that's not a fun person to be around. Sure, people might empathize with us if we're sad or if we're hurt, if a grievance has occurred. But if we turn to self pity and withdraw, again, that's not pleasant to be around. So, what children are doing though is they are watching. They are watching us, how we respond, what we tolerate, what we avoid. And over time, those responses shape how safe emotions feel, how kids regulate stress, and even how they relate in relationships with us, with others, with friends, with themselves, and even with God. But here's one other truth that I think is really important for us as parents to realize. An emotionally dysregulated child is not a learning child. When emotions are running the brain, the learning part of the brain is offline. And so the cognitive development of a child very much so depends on how well they are able to regulate their emotions. And they don't know how to regulate emotions if they've not been taught how to do so through modeling of a parent and through coaching. And so what we're going to talk about is how do we socialize emotions and how do we coach them in healthy ways? Emotion socialization is just the fancy scientific term for the pattern of how adults respond to a child's emotions over time. It's not just once, and it's not just on our best or our worst day, but the repeated ways in which we show up, the message that the child both hears and sees. When they're sad, do we empathize and then help them know what to do with that sadness? When they're angry, do we listen to them? Do we hear them out, understand their perspective, and then help them problem solve? When they're scared, do we join them in that fear and understand their fear and help them work through it? Or do we tell them to get over it? If they're overwhelmed, do we try to see things from their perspective and again, help them problem solve and make decisions? Or do we tell them that they need to just go figure it out? How we respond to their emotions is how they learn to respond to their own emotions. And that's what they carry with them through life. It's actually the core of secure attachment. When we see their emotions and we let them know that their emotions are safe to bring to us and talk about, they feel seen, they feel safe. And then when we start to talk about those emotions, they feel soothed because talking about emotions starts to relieve that pressure valve. And then they feel supported. Those are our 4 S's of secure attachment: safe, seen, soothed, and supported. And they all are accomplished through emotion socialization. Now, the scientific research consistently identifies four main emotion socialization styles. Most parents don't use just one. We do tend to default to one more than others, but sometimes the other emotion styles may appear, especially under times of stress. So let's walk through each of them. The first style is emotion coaching, and this is the one that we would really like to lean towards. It's how we talk them through emotions and what to do with them. The second one is emotion laissez-faire. This is the anything goes, feel how you feel, and we just leave them in their emotions. The third one is emotion dismissing, basically telling them to get over it. And then the fourth is emotion disapproving, telling them that their emotions are bad and they need to lock them up and get rid of them or else. So let's do a deeper dive into what these four look like. The emotion coaching parent comes at this from a calm perspective. They listen to the child, they make eye contact, they have a comforting posture. Their posture and their words say, all emotions are welcome, but not all behaviors are welcome. This is important because emotion coaching is not permissive. It does not mean anything goes. It does mean I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to hear you out, but I am going to help you learn how to make better decisions. And so parents that use this style, they notice emotions, they name them, and they help children learn how to handle them wisely. This is where connection and guidance work together. This parent helps a child understand that emotions are information. They are not emergencies. Now, if you're thinking, who has time for this? I don't have time to slow down. Check out some of my other episodes because I talk about the concept of how long it takes to emotionally regulate. And if you can just give your kiddo 90 seconds, you are going to see a world of difference. Again, it is not about permissive parenting. It is about slowing down long enough to help your child feel understood. Because once they are understood, it diffuses the amygdala, which is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. If you've got tantrums, if you've got meltdowns, if you've got them running away or withdrawing, or them trying to bribe you or negotiate with you, that's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that means that their emotional brain is in charge. They're not thinking straight and they're not learning. But if we can just pause and say things like, I see that you're really upset. That makes sense. Let's figure this out together. The part of the child's brain responsible for processing emotions does a pause and thinks, oh my goodness, someone knows what I'm feeling. They understand. Okay, maybe I don't need to make a huge scene to get attention. Maybe I don't need to do all of that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay, let's talk. That 90 seconds of just slowing down to say, I see that you're really upset. This seems hard. That's difficult. That's sad. It's like holding out a hand to take the child's right side of their brain over to the logical left side of the brain and say, let's talk this out. Then the forebrain can come online and say, okay, let's problem solve, let's self-regulate, let's decide what to do. The reason that emotion coaching matters is because kids who are emotion coached tend to regulate emotions better. They have faster recovery from stress and they feel safer coming to others when they struggle. It results in things like better emotional regulation, secure attachment, higher levels of empathy, and even resilience because they know that someone is going to be there to catch them when they fall and help them get back up and move forward. Now we're going to move into some of the other emotion socialization styles. This one is emotion disapproving. And I do this one next because I think that this is another very common one that many adults likely grew up with in their own home. This style views emotions, especially strong emotions like anger or sadness, as bad or disrespectful. And so the focus becomes on stopping the feeling instead of understanding it. And so if this is how you were raised, it's likely that this may be something that your brain defaults to in moments of stress. When a child is angry, you feel disrespected and you've got to shut it down. When a child is sad, that's uncomfortable and we've got to move along. And so common phrases that you may have heard include things like, I'll give you something to be sad about. Other disapproving language are things like stop crying, or that's not okay, or you shouldn't feel that way. Well, unfortunately, this is one of the earliest forms of gaslighting that our children experience is when we tell them that their feelings are illegitimate. Because the fact is that feelings are legitimate. They are internal signals of how we are feeling. Now, all feelings may not be based off of facts, and our cognitive interpretation of those feelings may be false. But to disapprove of a feeling is unhealthy for the child in many ways. But sometimes this does come from the best of intentions from a parent. We may respond this way when we want a child to behave, especially in public, or when we want a child to be strong and stick it out and be tough. But really, the message that the child is hearing instead is my feelings are a problem and I need to get rid of them. Now, then what a child learns is first of all, some emotions are bad or even shameful. They may also learn I'm wrong when I feel strongly. They also learn that love and acceptance are conditional on their ability to control their emotions. And so, long term, what this does is it starts to create a shame based emotional identity where they start thinking something is wrong with me for feeling this way. They may also develop heightened emotional reactivity where emotions come out explosively or through aggression because otherwise their emotions have no place unless they just get them out really fast. It also leads to things like external validation dependence, where they look to others to define their worth and their safety. Because growing up, they thought that their emotions were wrong and someone else had to tell them what was right. It could also lead to rigid self control or perfectionism because they are afraid of emotional failure. And so they have to be in control at all times and they have to be perfect. These are often our very stoic emotional children. And then finally, it leads to insecure attachment patterns. They are fearful of being vulnerable or in close relationships because they do have these emotions, but they know that they're not acceptable. And so they're trying to keep them stuffed down. Like I said, sadly, sometimes as parents, we think I'm teaching respect and I'm teaching self discipline. But the fact is that discipline without emotional safety is just teaching fear. It's not actually teaching self regulation. We're just teaching them to stuff it down inside. Okay, so the third one, emotion dismissing. When we try to minimize emotions or tell a child, like, it's not that big of a deal, just let's move on. What we're doing is we're trying to rush a kid past the feeling instead of helping them through the feeling. This often comes from parents who are uncomfortable with their own emotions, or they grew up without emotional language themselves. And so kids don't learn regulation by skipping feelings. In fact, those feelings are going to chase them down. And at some point in life, they are going to have to wrestle through them. And so, what better time to do that than when they have a trusted, loving parent with them? We want them to learn how to move through them, not run away from them. So when parents say things like, you're fine, it's not a big deal, just move on, this too shall pass, what a child actually learns is my emotions aren't important. I should suppress or ignore what I feel. Other people won't help me when I'm overwhelmed. And unfortunately, the long term impact on the child is that this promotes, first of all, poor emotional awareness. They struggle to even be able to identify or articulate their emotions as teens and as adults. You might ask them, well, how do you feel? And they don't have words for it. They don't even know the words sad, angry, hurt, afraid. The other thing is they internalize this distress. And so that starts to show up as anxiety, depression, or even somatic complaints like headaches, stomach aches, back pain, neck pain. They may also develop avoidant coping patterns like shutting down, numbing, distraction, overfunctioning, workaholism, perfectionism. The numbing can turn into things like addictions, whether it be alcohol, drugs, um, or shopping addictions. Like the addictions show up in so many different ways where they're just trying to cope with these emotions that they know don't have a place. The other thing is that it can result in relational distance because it's difficult to ask for help or to share emotional needs when they've always been dismissed. And then spiritually, this impact is often unseen, but the belief becomes that emotions should be hidden from God rather than brought to him. And basically, open the book of Psalms to see that nothing could be further from the truth. So often, God, throughout the Bible, invites us to bring our emotions to him. And David was named a man after God's own heart. And look how emotionally expressive he was. And so when we dismiss our child's emotions, we often misunderstand it as, well, I'm teaching them resilience. But that's not how resilience is built. Resilience is actually built through processing emotions, not bypassing them. Okay, so the final emotion socialization style is emotion laissez-faire. This style allows emotions to flow freely, but it doesn't teach the boundaries or the coping skills that go with them. And so while a child may be free to feel their emotions, they're not actually emotionally supported because their emotions are not being shaped. Now, this is common, especially in children who have lived through trauma, whether it be big T trauma or little t trauma. It is um, often that a parent or a caregiver will feel guilt for holding a child accountable for their emotions, for teaching boundaries or teaching coping skills, when in fact, we're going to see what the potential long term consequences are for allowing this emotion laissez faire style. Before we go to the consequences, let's talk about the language that may be used with emotion laissez faire socialization. So basically, it is all feelings are allowed and there's very little guidance. So the core message that the child receives is your emotions are valid, but you're on your own to manage them. Good luck. And so the common phrases that are used with emotion laissez-faire parenting language are feel however you want. It's okay to feel however you want to feel. You're allowed to be angry. Just let it out. Feel your feelings. Or you don't need to deal with this. I'll fix it for you. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to the teacher. I'll talk to the coach. I'll talk to the friend. You shouldn't have to feel this way. Or maybe boundary avoidant language, things like, oh, I don't want to upset you. Or, okay, calm down, just calm down. We'll do it your way. Or I can't say no when you're this upset. What's missing there is emotional containment and leadership. And then there's emotion-led decision-making, things like where the language lets the emotion dictate the outcomes. Like, okay, well, we'll decide when you feel better. Or if this feels hard, we just don't have to do it. We don't have to do it. Or your feelings, what are your feelings telling you to do or not do? This misses the whole point that emotions are just information. They inform decisions. They don't make decisions. There's also the language that over-identifies with the emotion. Like, oh, I can't stand to see you upset, or this makes me too anxious, or your sadness breaks my heart. These are all very comforting things that can be said, but when they stand alone without any boundaries or guidance, it's missing a calm, regulated adult presence to be able to help a child process this. And so when we use language like this, over time, children learn that emotions feel overwhelming. Someone else needs to fix them. Limits actually start to feel unsafe or unpredictable. And they start to equate strong feelings with loss of control. And it's not because parents don't care, but because care was not paired with guidance. And so we have to go back and teach coping skills, skill building, tolerance, problem solving, teaching them what to do next or to think through. Now, if we allow this emotion laissez-faire approach to reign in the household where it's like all feelings are fine, do whatever you need, the child learns that emotions run the show, that they don't need help managing them. They learn that boundaries are unclear or inconsistent. And over time, the long-term impact is, first of all, poor emotional regulation. Big feelings feel unmanageable and overwhelming, and they shut down. They also learn low frustration tolerance, so difficulty with disappointment, limits, delayed gratification. They also may develop entitlement or trouble with emotional impulsivity. So they expect others to accommodate to their emotions. If they're upset, everyone needs to follow their whim. If they're angry, then everybody needs to stop what they're doing and listen to them. This starts to result in challenges with peer relationships. So they have a hard time navigating conflict or compromise. And then there may be anxiety from a lack of structure. So children start to feel like they're not developmentally supported. They might be emotionally supported, but then what do they do with those emotions? And so when we use this style as parents, we think that we're being emotionally supportive. But when we don't give the guidance with it, it actually leaves a child feeling really underprepared rather than empowered. Here's the good news, though. There is a better way forward for this. It is the approach that I teach called notice it, name it, nurture it. Emotion coaching aligns beautifully with what I teach here because the goal is to first notice the emotion, help the child feel seen. That is secure attachment. Then we need to start to help them name what's happening inside. Is it anger, fear, sadness, hurt, shame, guilt, loneliness? Or are they glad and they have a lot of energy and we need to help them learn how to channel that? And then after name it, then comes nurture it. What skill do they need next? If they're angry, how do they channel that anger in a healthy way? If they're sad, how do they find comfort the right way, not through manipulation? If they're hurt, how do they manage conflict and how do they approach those conversations with whoever has created the hurt? If they're feeling guilty, how do they approach a conversation and offer repair and remorse? These are all things that I teach in my core Parenting with Purpose series. There are countless tools available for us to be able to notice the behavior, name the developmental need underneath it, and then nurture the skills that grow it. We also deep dive into what is true at each age and stage of a child's development so that we know exactly what tools to use for each skill that needs to be built. So, if something that I shared here today stuck with you, please be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And I just want to leave you with this encouragement. Awareness changes everything. If you recognize yourself in more than one style, good. It means you're human. This is not about being perfect. It's about becoming more intentional because small shifts in how we respond to emotions can change a child's emotional story for life. I talk about this and so many other parenting techniques in my book, Notice It, Name It, Nurture It. If you want to go deeper, I also offer several free guides, parenting classes, and personalized coaching, which you can find on theKairosBridge.com/start-here. Next week, I'm going to have a special guest on the podcast, licensed family therapist Esmeralda Carenas from Willow Path Collective. And she and I are going to sit down and talk about what it is like as a mother to approach emotions and how to use emotion coaching when sometimes we feel like dismissing, disapproving, or laissez-faire emotional styles. Thank you so much for your dedication and your interest in this conversation. If this stuck with you, please be sure to share with someone else who needs this encouragement. And my final message for you is you are doing so much even by being here and learning. There are so many positive changes that we can make even by just changing how we coach emotions. Because as I mentioned, emotions inform thought, and that cognitive thinking informs behavior. Until next time, be blessed.